Hello electronics enthusiasts, welcome back to my channel. Mike here. Now, I've got two channels on YouTube, and over on my main channel, as I call it, because it was my first channel and it's bigger, it's got more subscribers, got more videos on it. I specialize in recovering gold and precious metals from electronic waste, okay? That's what I do over there. Very popular, somewhat lucrative, getting the precious metals out of electronic waste. But I don't automatically feed every board I get right into the process of rendering it down for its gold and silver, okay? So I've got here a box full of Telecom boards that were sent to me by a friend, and I have an unboxing video of this on the other channel. I'll put a link in the upper right, and you can go check out the channel too if you like, if you're at all interested in that sort of thing. So I have here a box of Telecom equipment sent to me by a friend. And I am going to render this stuff down. I'm going to get the gold out of it. I mean, there's gold fingers here. There's a lot of IC chips. The IC chips have gold. There's a lot of relays that have silver contacts. There's capacitors that have silver. There's LEDs that have silver and gold. But I need raw material for my own projects on this channel. So before I totally destroy these boards to render them down for their gold and silver and whatnot, I am first going to very carefully remove a few components that might come in handy for my own projects. I mean, take a look at these boards. I mean, this board here is just loaded with IC chips. Not very many of them are reusable for my projects. I mean, here's a, what is this? 27C256 EEPROM. Well, I have a lot of these, so I probably won't bother with it. But we got, what is it, 24.576 megahertz crystal oscillator. I don't know, that might come in handy. There's a lot of glue logic chips on here. I already have a lot of glue logic chips, so this board I'm probably not going to do too much with. But look at this board. This is a different story. This board, again, it's got an EEPROM chip on it that I really don't have much use for, but it has an 8 megahertz CMOS Z80 chip on it. This is the NEC version, but some of these boards have the Zilog version. There's the big Z right there. Yeah, so, yeah, some of these boards have the Zilog version of it on there. Again, we've got a crystal oscillator, 16 megahertz. That's more of a useful frequency, especially driving one of these. We've got a 1 farad. Let me read it right, because I've misread this in the other video. It's a 1 farad, 5.5 volt super capacitor on here, which I'm sure was for power backup during power glitches and sags. That could come in handy for a few things. We got some 2SK817 MOSFETs up here, 4 of them, probably used for voltage regulation on this board. Those could come in handy. There's a plethora of capacitors, high power resistors. Now there's a lot of transformers. This is going to be telephone line matching transformers. Don't really have much use for them. There's a lot of torids. Don't have much use for them. We got a bunch of LEDs across the top in banks of 4. I could think of a few uses for those. I might grab myself a few of these off these boards before scrapping them totally. So yeah, that's a possibility. Now this board here, look at all the relays on this board. My goodness, there's a lot of relays on it. I want the silver contacts out of those relays, but I also want the 8 megahertz CMOS Z80 chip off of it. And there's a whole bunch of opto-isolators in here. And I looked up the specs on them. They're kind of oddball ones that I haven't seen before. And they might actually turn out to be useful for some projects I have in mind. So I might salvage a few opto-isolators off of this board. There's a lot of dip switches up here. I think I probably already have a lot of dip switches, but these are kind of interesting. These are kind of on the side, you know. Here's some more dip switches, which are, you know, you adjust them on the top. But these are like right angle. You can get at them from the side. If I can get these out without melting them, yeah, maybe I'll take a couple of these. They could come in handy for something with my projects, I'm sure. So I've got this whole big bin full of these older Telecom boards. A lot of these boards have the 8 megahertz CMOS Z80 on them. That's the newer logo or the older logo, I'm not sure which. That's an 8 megahertz CMOS Z80. Again, we got a lot of relays. There's a whole lot of capacitors on here. I may grab a couple just to put them in my junk box, because you never know. You always need a value of capacitor you don't have. So there's a couple, 3 different values on this board I can add to the junk box. Here's another big board with a whole lot of chips on it. Unfortunately, not many of them that I can use. There are some interesting ones over here. They are HM6268Ps-25 high-speed RAM chips, but I think they're only 4K. And there's there's 12 of them on this board. So very high speed RAM, but only 12K. So I don't know how useful that would be. So yeah, there's a lot of good stuff in here. So I'm going to get my heat gun out. And this stuff is not coming off quick enough with the heat gun. I may hit it with a propane torch very carefully. And see if I can salvage some of this stuff for use in my own projects before just taking the rest of the board to bits and processing the bits for their gold and silver. I have a pretty good way of depopulating boards. It works especially well on surface mount boards with all surface mount components. I just put the board in one of my big kilns, because I have a lot of kilns, and I ramp the temperature up to a little bit above the melting point to solder, and just shake the board, and pretty much everything falls off. I might have to get some pliers and pick out some of the through hole stuff, because it doesn't want to necessarily fall out, but that works pretty good for me. But it's a little rough on the components. So the stuff I want to keep, I'm going to be a little bit more careful and remove carefully with the heat gun, and keep for potential reuse. Okay? So let me get started on that. If the rain will hold off, I'll show you a little bit of it. Okay, we're going to start with this board right here. What I want off of this board is the Z80 chip and the LEDs and the dip switches if I can get them, and maybe a couple of these opto isolators if I can get them off. Okay? So this may not be the gentlest way of getting parts off of a board, but I'll tell you what, it works, and generally the components are reusable afterwards. They still work. The trick is not to get things too hot. Just want to get them just hot enough, okay? And get a good grip on it. And I found also I have to preheat my heat gun for a while, because it takes a while to get up to temperature. So get it good and hot in advance, and keep it moving. Don't leave it in one place long enough, or you'll start blistering the circuit board and making a lot of noxious smoke. Keep it moving across the solder joints you want to melt. Get the heat gun right up against those solder joints you want to melt too. Get them good and hot. But like I say, keep it moving, especially with something like a 40-pin dip. Got a lot of solder pads you got to melt to get that out of there. So you can't let some get cold while the others are getting hot and melting. There it goes. Whoops. One sticky pin. But there we go. There's our first Z80 out. Okay. Let's see here. See what else I can get off this board. There we go. There's our first 4 LED group. That actually came out pretty darn easy. Well, a lot fewer pins on it than on the Z80, so yeah, that makes sense. $40 pins versus 8 pins. No prize for guessing which comes out easier. There's another one. There's a third one. I can see how those could come in handy. I could build myself like a blinking lights front panel for one of my retro computing projects. That would be cool. There we go. There's all 4 of those off. I'm not going to turn my heat gun off because it takes so darn long to get up to temperature. Oh, looks like we got some resistor networks out with our LEDs. Let's see, what do we got here? 10K. Very common value for resistor networks. Those will come in handy. Okay. So let me go after some other stuff. Let me see. I don't know if I'll be able to do it without destroying them, but let me see if I can get a couple of these 90-degree dip switches off of here. They might melt and fall apart. So that's a possibility. And I might need a different type of pliers to grab them too. Let me get those. So for some of these components, a proper desoldering station would probably make more sense. Of course, I don't have a proper desoldering station, so we'll just have to make do with what I do have here. See how it goes. That actually came out pretty darn painlessly. Nice. Alright, let me see if I can get its companion off here. It should have got preheated a little bit during that process, so it might come off too. Trying to keep the hot air from actually blowing on the switch while keeping it on the solder connections down here. Yep. That one's going to come off too. There we go. Easy peasy. What else do I want on this board? Well, there's another resistor network. Got them for free. That's good because I've had to buy 10K resistor networks. It's good to get them for free. Let's see. Let me go after some of these opto isolators over here. See if I can pull some of these out. Because these have interesting specs. I'll show you the spec sheet on these. They're kind of different. This is old telecom equipment. Telephone lines used an AC ring signal. So some of these opto isolators take an AC input, which is kind of interesting. This is one of those times a big belly comes in handy. It's like a third hand. I really need a vise or something out here when I'm doing this. But hey, the opto isolators are coming out nice and easy. Yes, they are. Nice. I wish all these components would come out so easy. Okay. So on this board, I'm just going to go ahead and grab a few more opto-isolators off of it, and then I'll move on to another board. I want the MOSFETs off this board, and supercapacitor, and of course we've got another Z80, so I'll take that. And we'll see if there's any, maybe the crystal oscillator, maybe some capacitors, but let me get a few more opto-isolators off this board, then I'll move on to another board. Okay, I think I forgot to hit the record button, but I got the, ooh, it's still hot. I got the 16 megahertz crystal oscillator off. Now I'm going after the supercapacitor over here. You know, this reminds me of my childhood. When I was a kid, my grandfather got me into electronics because he repaired TVs and radios. Back in the day when they were, you know, tubes. And back in the 60s, and 70s, I'd hang out in his workshop. And he taught me a lot about electronics. And I would experiment. And then to get parts, to do my experiments and build things, I'd take stuff apart. I couldn't afford to go down to Radio Shack or wherever and buy parts, not till later. You know, all I had was a little allowance money, maybe some money from shoveling snow. So I used some good solder on that. So I'm going to take the torch to it. Makes nasty fumes, but makes short work of it. So I've got the supercapacitor out anyway. So yeah, that's how I got parts for my experimentation when I was a kid, was just taking stuff apart, you know, old TVs, radios, whatever I could get my hands on. Get the components out of them, get motors from things. You see about these MOSFETs up here. I don't like using the torch unless I absolutely have to, because it chars the back of the board and makes some nasty smoke, but I'll tell you what, it works really quick for getting stuff out. You just don't want to put too much of a heat load on the components when you're using the torch. You got to do it quick. Don't leave it on there and let them char. Because we're getting these for reuse, remember? There we go. There's one. Alright, I'm going to take off the other 3 MOSFETs on this board. That's what I'm going to take off. The other 3 MOSFETs and the Z80. And I'll look it over. I may get a couple of these capacitors. And maybe some more of these LED bars up here. And I'm just going to keep that up for a little while. I'm probably not going to do every board because I got a lot of boards here. Oh my goodness. And I don't need that many components, I don't think. But I'm going to do it for a little while, salvage some stuff. And I'll show you the haul when I'm done. Okay, after not quite an hour or so, which I wouldn't make you sit through all of it, here's my haul. I got quite a bit of stuff, probably more than I'll ever use, but you know, what the heck. Some of this stuff is going to be very useful. Of course, I got the 4 Z80 chips here, 8 megahertz CMOS chips. Some of the pins might need a little re-straightening, but I'm sure they'll probably work. I can actually test them pretty easy. I have a Z80 MBC2 retro computer I built a while back. I actually have a video about that. I'll put a link to that up in the upper right if you're interested. I can just, since it uses an 8 megahertz CMOS Z80, I can just pop these into it to test them and make sure they're still good. That I haven't mangled them taking them out of the board. Odds are all 4 of them probably going to be good, with based on my experience doing this. Got a lot of these little 4 LED light bars here. Again, probably more than I will ever need, but how often do you see these things, you know? So I figured I'd grab them. I got a bunch of these power MOSFETs off the board. I probably only need 1 or 2 for some of the power supply projects I'm going to be building in the future, but I got lots of spares. Okay. Got these 3 supercapacitors. I don't know, I might harvest some more supercapacitors. There's more of them on the boards in there. Really, I don't have a use for them. They're just too cool. I couldn't, you know, let them go. You know, I was talking about when I learned electronics as a kid. Back then, 1 farad capacitors were only theoretical, you know. Capacitance is measured in farads, but you never saw more than microfarads or picofarads in your capacitors. There were never farad capacitors back then, so I'll have to find some use for them. I don't know. I got some of these oddball opto-isolators. I may play around with these. I could think of a couple of interesting circuits I could build with them, especially the ones that respond to AC. That'd be cool. Got a few freebie 10K resistor networks here. In fact, you know what? I might go back and pull some more of them off. They come out real easy. They come in really handy as pull-up resistor networks for microprocessors. They're just the right value, and of course they were used with a microprocessor, so yeah. I got 2 of these right angle dip switches. I'll have to look through all these boards and see if there's any more of them. These came out really, really easy, and I'll bet they're just fine. There's no melting of the plastic or anything, so they're probably totally reusable. I'll see if I can maybe grab a couple more of those just for my junk box. An assortment of capacitors here, different values, just to build out my capacitor values a little bit in my junk box. I grabbed a couple, well, 6 of these tiny little relays, and I'm going to go research them because I haven't had a chance to do that. I'll research the spec sheet on these and see, maybe I might want to grab some more. They come out pretty darn easy too. Got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 crystal oscillators here in 2 different values, 15 and 16 megahertz. And this 15 megahertz ones, I'll tell you what, they have pretty long legs on them. Those I might actually be able to stick into a breadboard. I don't know, but the 16 megahertz ones are pretty short. They'll have to go into a PC board and get soldered in. Got a couple of high power resistors I salvaged. Oh, and a little tiny toggle switch, a little tiny PC board mount toggle switch. Yeah, why not? You know, it came halfway out while I was taking something else out. I said, well, I'll take it the rest of the way out and keep it. What the heck? So there you go. There's some parts I've salvaged for my own projects out of all of this stuff here, which on the other channel is going to get rendered down for its gold and silver. And I wouldn't be surprised if we get quite a few grams of gold and a respectable amount of silver out of this stuff too. So, yeah, but I wasn't going to do it without salvaging some of the good stuff on the boards first. Some of the reusable good stuff, because nobody wants those boards. They're too old, they're useless. So I'm just, like I said, going to render them down for their good stuff, the gold and the silver, but the other good stuff is a few components I can reuse. In fact, I may even pull a few more off, you know, before totally rendering them down for gold and silver and copper, which is what their ultimate fate is. Anyway, I hope you found this salvaging of components video a little bit interesting, educational, inspirational, whatever. Give it a like, give it a thumbs up, and subscribe to see my future videos, and press that little bell icon YouTube wants you to press to be notified when new videos come out. As a subscriber, you will be notified when I release a new video if you press that bell icon. Check out my other channel, Omega Geek 64, where you will see this stuff and a lot of other stuff like it rendered down into pretty gold bars and silver bars. And subscribe there, and like, and comment. Leave me a comment. If you have something to say about what I'm doing here, leave me a comment. Suggestions, comments, constructive criticism, I'm always open to that. And I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks again for watching. Bye.